And if the current disparities and imbalances were to intensify, none of us, nor would any of our neighbors, be able to guarantee their futures. In order to close the gap, address inequalities, and open the doors of opportunity so we can all walk towards a prosperous future, there are three solutions I'd like to share with you. First, economic fundamentals need to be strengthened for continuous growth. To venture into the future, we must allocate our resources into sectors with high growth potential, creating a virtuous cycle that generates wealth and lowers debts. And to this end, the Republic of Korea is investing in future growth sectors such as AI with the aim to increase gross production and decrease long-term debt by pursuing a performance-based fiscal policy. Developing countries, however, are weighed down by excessive debt, which limits their capability to invest in growth, ultimately weakening their potential for sustainable growth. In order to address these problems faced by developing nations, we must not halt our efforts to strengthen debt sustainability. And the President of Angola mentioned this, and I fully agree with what he said, in that the Republic of Korea will actively partake in various G20 efforts, including the implementation of the Africa Engagement Framework.
Second, to enhance our growth potential, a predictable trade and investment environment should be created. The WTO's recovery of its functions is in the interest of all of us. The Republic of Korea will actively support the successful hosting of next year's WTO Ministerial Conference to be held in Africa. Also, Korea will make efforts to ensure that the Investment Facilitation for Development Agreement, which we have led in advancing, is formally adopted at next year's WTO Ministerial Conference. Third, to drive the growth of developing countries, the effectiveness of development cooperation must be enhanced. By hosting the Busan Global Partnership Forum, Korea has been developing the ways to enhance development effectiveness. As we have led the efforts to adopt the MDB Roadmap Monitoring and Reporting Framework, Korea will continue to participate in the efforts to reform multilateral development banks. Korea will continue to work closely with G20 members to ensure more benefits are distributed to developing countries. Dear colleagues, we must unite together to move toward a sustainable future. As a member of the Group of 20, the Republic of Korea is committed to fulfilling our responsibilities and roles. By pursuing inclusive growth that enables everyone to enjoy opportunity, Korea will make our utmost efforts to minimize the number of countries that are left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I now wish to call upon His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, to take the floor.
Testing, relay for English. Testing, relay for English. Esteemed heads of state and government, esteemed delegates, I extend my warmest regards and greetings to you on behalf of myself and my country. And I would like to express my gratitude to President Ramaphosa for his warm welcome. I hope that the outcomes of our summit will have a positive impact. Rising protectionism, high global debt, rapidly aging populations, competitive pressures, and geopolitical tension.
Küresel büyüme görünümünü zayıflatıyor. Bu nedenle G20'nin sürdürülebilir kalkınmayı destekleyen ve kapsayıcılığı güçlendiren bir anlayışla işbirliğini daha da derinleştirmesi gerekiyor. 2030 sürdürülebilir kalkınma hedeflerinin esasını oluşturan kimseyi geride bırakmama taahhüdümüze rağmen bugün dünya genelinde her 10 kişiden biri hala aşırı yoksullukla mücadele ediyor. 2024 yılında %9 azalan toplam küresel kalkınma yardımlarının 2025'te %17'lere varan düşüşleri görmesi bekleniyor. Bu durum maalesef Afrika kıtası için çok büyük kayıplara işaret ediyor. Komşusu açken tok yatmayan bir anlayışın temsilcisi olarak üzerimize düşen sorumluluğu her türlü menfi koşula rağmen yapmaya devam ediyoruz. Resmi kalkınma yardımlarımızı 2023'te 6,8 milyar dolar seviyesinden 2024 yılında 7,4 milyar dolara çıkarttık. Ancak bu yardımlarla hedeflenen menzile ulaşmak imkansızdır. Özellikle en az gelişmiş ülkelerde yerel kaynakların harekete geçirilmesi suretiyle sürdürülebilir kalkınma için finansman modelleri geliştirilmesi önemsiyoruz. Bakınız, karşı karşıya olduğumuz sınamalar sadece en az gelişmiş ülkeleri değil, tüm ekonomileri etkisi altına almıştır. Küresel finans krizi öncesinde ticaret küresel büyümenin en güçlü motoruyken kriz sonrası dönemde tablo köklü biçimde değişmiştir. 1987-2007 döneminde dünya ticareti yıllık ortalama %7 oranında artarken 2008-2024 döneminde %3'lere gerilemiş, küresel büyümeye katkısı belirgin şekilde zayıflamıştır. Bugün küresel ticaretin yeniden canlanması için daha köklü bir uluslararası işbirliğine, yeni politika araçlarına ve sürdürülebilir tedarik zincirlerine ihtiyaç duyuyoruz. Uluslararası ticaret kurallarının kalkınmayı destekleyecek biçimde güçlendirilmesini ve bilhassa Dünya Ticaret Örgütü'nün özel ve lehte muamele ilkesine bağlılığımızın teyit edilmesini mühim görüyorum. Kıymetli katılımcılar, bugün dünya genelinde toplam borçluluk oranı küresel hasılanın %324'üne ulaşmış durumda. Türkiye'de ise bu oran %89 seviyesinde seyrediyor. Bu görece düşük borçluluk düzeyi bize hem yapısal dönüşümü hızlandırmak hem de yatırımlar için ilave kaynak ayırmak için önemli bir mali alan sağlıyor. Ancak ne yazık ki düşük gelirli ekonomilerin çoğu bu imkana sahip değil. Bu ülkeler yüksek finansman maliyetleriyle daralan mali alan arasında adeta sıkışmış durumdalar. Birleşmiş Milletler'in 2025 borç raporuna göre 3,4 milyar insanın yaşadığı ülkelerde faiz ödemeleri, sağlık ve eğitim harcamalarını aşmış vaziyette. Bilhassa düşük gelirli ülkeler için borç yeniden yapılandırma süreçlerinde adil ve eşit muameleye dayalı bir yaklaşımın benimsenmesini destekliyoruz. Türkiye olarak G20 ortak çerçevesi kapsamında katkı sunduğumuz Gana ve Etiyopya'nın borçlarının yeniden yapılandırılması sürecinde alınan mesafeyi memnuniyetle karşılıyoruz. Bu örnekten hareketle kimsenin geride bırakılmadığı, daha kapsayıcı bir küresel ekonomi inşasında tüm G20'yi daha fazla sorumluluk üstlenmeye davet ediyorum. Sizleri sevgiyle, saygıyla selamlıyorum. Kalın sağlıcakla.
Thank you, President Erdoğan. I wish to apologize that there was a system failure, particularly with Channel 11. We are now going to get a direct translation from the interpreter. Seemingly, there was a failure in synchronizing the speech with the translation. So we will allow the interpreter to interpret what President Erdoğan was saying. Please go ahead.
Distinguished heads of state and government, distinguished delegates, I would like to extend my warmest greetings to all of you. And I would like to extend my gratitude to President Ramaphosa for his kind hospitality, and we hope that the outcomes of this summit will bring positive results. I also would like to wish success to the United States of America, which will assume the G20 presidency next year. With issues such as rising protectionism, elevated debt levels, a rapidly aging population, and intensifying competition, in addition to geopolitical tensions, all of these issues are creating a major weight on global growth outlook. And therefore, in this vein, the G20 must further deepen cooperation with an approach that supports sustainable development and contributes to enhancing inclusivity. Despite our commitment to leave no one behind, which forms the core of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, today, 1 out of 10 people worldwide faces extreme poverty. Official development assistance in global level, which declined by 9% in 2024, is expected to fall by as much as 17% in 2025. Unfortunately, this situation points to substantial losses for the African continent. As Turkey, we continue to fulfill our responsibilities despite all these negative circumstances. We increased our official development assistance from $6.8 billion in 2023 to $7.4 billion in the year 2024. However, it is impossible to achieve development targets solely over ODAs. We attach particular importance to developing financing models for sustainable development through mobilizing domestic resources, especially in the least developed countries. And let us be clear, current challenges affect all economies across the globe. Trade used to be the strongest engine of global growth prior to the global financial crisis. However, the situation has fundamentally changed in the post-crisis period. Between 1987 and 2007, world trade expanded at an average annual rate of 7%. However, during 2008 and 2024, this slowed to around 3%, significantly weakening its contribution to global growth. Today, reviving global trade requires deeper international cooperation, new policy tools, and sustainable supply chains. Strengthening international trade rules in a manner that supports development, and in particular to reaffirm our commitment to the World Trade Organization's principle of special and differential treatment, is very crucial. Excellencies, the total debt to GDP ratio now stands at 324%. In Turkey, however, this ratio is at 89%. This relatively low level of debt provides us a valuable fiscal space to accelerate structural transformation and also allocate additional resources for investment. Unfortunately, most low-income countries do not have this advantage. These countries find themselves squeezed between elevated financing costs and severely constrained fiscal space. According to the United Nations 2025 A World of Debt report, in the countries home to 3.4 billion people, interest payments now exceed total spending on health and education. We support applying fair and equal treatment in debt restructuring processes, particularly for low-income countries. As Turkey, we welcome the progress made in the debt restructuring of Ghana and Ethiopia, to which we have contributed under the G20 Common Framework. Drawing on this experience, we call on all G20 members to assume greater responsibility in constructing a more inclusive global economy where no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Erdoğan. We apologize for the failure of the system there. I now have the opportunity to call upon His Excellency Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Well, President Ramaphosa, let me start by thanking you for hosting us here, the first G20 on African soil, which is a proud moment for South Africa, but one that, in my view, is long overdue. So let's make this summit count. It's striking, listening to the contributions, that across our different corners of the globe, we're all concerned to achieve the same thing for our citizens: good jobs, lower bills, higher growth, better living standards. And that is what my government is focused on. And we want to work with our partners around the table to make that happen. But there's no doubt the road ahead is tough. This is a moment of mounting competition and crises around the world. And that, I think, has been mentioned by pretty well every contribution so far. Fragility in the Middle East, rising threats of authoritarianism and fragmentation, as well as Russia's ongoing unjustified war in Ukraine. The shockwaves of that invasion are still reverberating through global markets today. It has hit growth, driven up food and energy prices, and deepened persistent imbalances and instability across the world. With all that in mind, and echoing what others have said, the role of the G20 is critical at this moment. Growth must be a mission for us all to embrace, as the means to improve lives, to fund public services, and to keep our people secure. The G20 has worked together before to fix fundamental problems in the global economy. We need to find ways to play a constructive role again today in the face of the world challenges. And I'd like to see us come together around a 5-point plan for growth that leaves no one behind. First, we do need to tackle global imbalances, like excessive surpluses and deficits, which can disrupt trade flows, sever supply chains, and choke off growth. For deficit countries, that means acting to stop unsustainable borrowing and prioritise the investment and structural reforms that drive up growth. For surplus countries, it means taking action to reduce subsidies and other trade distortions, as well as measures to boost domestic consumption. Second, we should promote open and balanced trade, taking steps to liberalise trade where we can, with new agreements that lower tariffs and barriers and return to the stability and certainty that business needs. This is a real priority for my government, and I'm proud of the agreements we've reached and the progress that we've made with partners like India and the EU, benefiting our economies and creating new opportunities for our people. Third, in an era of instability, we need to make our economies more resilient. In the UK, this means an unshakable commitment to fiscal discipline. And it means investing in growth in critical areas like clean energy production. We want to work with partners around the world on this to protect us all from future energy shocks. And we want to act together to secure vital supply chains, including for critical minerals. Fourth, we need to reform the international rules-based system so that it's fit for the modern world. We need to work together to ensure organisations like the WTO are more able to be agile with new rules to meet modern challenges like environmental and digital trade, and better and more flexible decision-making processes so that those who want to make progress can get on and do it. Finally, we do need to work together to tackle the unique challenges facing emerging economies, especially in Africa, whether it's the growing debt burden or the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. This G20 is the moment to respond to these structural challenges and to deliver more stable and resilient finance. We're working on that through the London Coalition on Sustainable Debt. We need to go further under the G20 Common Framework to make debt restructuring better, faster, and easier. And we need to crowd in more private capital. We're working with the industry to break down regulatory barriers in the United Kingdom, and we want to see multilateral development banks take more risk and partner more with the private sector in new, innovative ways to mobilise finance. AJ and I have been discussing this in some detail, and I think we agree there's huge potential for this to go further. For the good of all our people, it is time to make it happen. So let me thank you once again, President Ramaphosa, for your presidency of this G20. I wish the US the best of luck next year in 2026, and I look forward to taking forward the agenda during our presidency in 2027. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Starmer. I now have the opportunity to call upon the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency, Mr. Gibrian Rakabamung Raka, to take the floor.
Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, Excellencies, leaders of G20 countries, let me begin by conveying warm greetings from President Prabowo to President Ramaphosa. Also deep appreciation to the government of South Africa for the warm hospitality and excellent arrangement. We commend South Africa's leadership in steering the G20 through a challenging year. This is a historic G20 summit, the first being held on African soil. This milestone marks a profound shift where the Global South is no longer a bystander, but a co-driver of Global South. Excellencies, Indonesia believes that global growth must not only be strong, but also fair and inclusive to uplift each and every nation. Indonesia welcomes the G20's focus on sustainable finance, yet ambition must go further to close gaps and to pursue adaptation, mitigation, and transition that is just and fair. The world needs financing that is more accessible, predictable, and equal, especially for developing nations, through debt relief, innovative financing, blended finance, and green transition mechanism. Indonesia allocates more than half of our national climate budget, around $2.5 billion annually, to support green MSMEs, agricultural insurance, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Indonesia also promotes financial inclusion. Our national CRIS digital payment system demonstrates how a simple and a low-cost digital solution can push participation in the economy and minimize inequality. Emerging technologies such as crypto asset, digital tokens, including Bitcoin, may create both opportunities and risks. Therefore, Indonesia proposes that the G20 initiate dialogue on intelligence economy. Indonesia believes that every country is entitled to chart its own development path because there is no single model that fits all. There is no such thing called the best method. Cooperation must empower, not dictate. Cooperation must uplift, not create dependency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. I now would like to call upon the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade and Worship of Argentina, Ms. Pablo Quirno Magrey. Oh, Mr. Thank you. Is it switching on? No? Looks like somebody wants to silence you.
There we go. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. I would like to express our gratitude to the government of South Africa and President Ramaphosa for the generous hospitality extended to us by your country during this year. Your presidency has invited us to reflect through the lenses of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Allow me to outline our perspective on these pillars. We believe that the principles of solidarity, equality, and sustainability can only be achieved with an international system grounded in freedom, clear rules, and responsible economic governance. Economic growth remains the foundation for job creation, investment, and resilience in our economies. Such growth depends on policies that promote stability, innovation, and private sector development within a predictable framework grounded in the rule of law and a market-based economy, as highlighted in the G20's foundational declarations. Argentina has learned firsthand that long-term growth is only possible when supported by sound public finances. Fiscal imbalances contribute to inflationary pressures, limit investment, and erode economic confidence. Addressing these imbalances through responsible fiscal management and expenditure control is critical. In this context, solidarity can only be effective when growth rests on a stable macroeconomic environment, a legal order that protects private property, and clear rules that expand opportunities for private sector development and all individuals in our society. Associated with this is equality of opportunity, which is both achievable and desirable when grounded in the principle of equality under the law. Achieving this requires structural reforms that foster solid institutional and regulatory frameworks, laying the groundwork for markets to function efficiently, attract investments, encourage job creation, and boost productivity. Equally important is creating opportunities through education, which serves as a powerful equalizing tool and equips individuals with the skills needed to fully benefit from these economic reforms. Technology is a strong ally in this effort. We must maximize the opportunities it provides while mitigating its risks. This includes fostering digital transformation and ensuring that job creation aligns with the needs of the future economy based on the upskilling and reskilling of labor. It is therefore necessary to design policies that facilitate investment by establishing conditions for the development of a market policy, vocational training, and education for work that facilitates growth, the creation of wealth, and quality jobs, accompanied by labor flexibility policies. Development policies must be directed toward creating an environment that encourages private investment by reducing risks and taxes, protecting individual property rights, ensuring predictability, and enabling all people to pursue the success of their ventures based on merit, effort, vision, and innovation. When the foundations of growth are respected, solidarity and equality of opportunity become achievable and sustainable over time. Distinguished Chair, esteemed leaders, finally, I wish to draw to your attention to the draft document circulated yesterday. As we all recognize, this G20 represents an important opportunity to demonstrate our collective commitment to the development of the African continent and its people. Argentina has sought to contribute meaningfully and constructively to the consensus-building process. We have shared the red lines we identified in this context, aiming to support the G20's broader goals. Those red lines remain until this time. We all know that the G20 is a premier global forum for coordinating economic actions. Its core principle is consensus, which reflects a reality that all of us must work together to accomplish our shared objectives, ensuring financial stability, fostering economic growth, and strengthening collective development. For Argentina, it is crucial to preserve the integrity of this process by acknowledging when consensus has not been achieved, rather than proceeding with a document that does not accurately reflect our collective will. Moreover, we're deeply concerned with how certain geopolitical issues are framed in the document. Specifically, it addresses the long-standing Middle East conflict in a manner that fails to capture its full complexity. By focusing on a single dimension of a specific territory, it overlooks the broader regional context, the international recognition of different entities, and the structural causes of the dispute. In this regard, I wish to recall the recent adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2803 on November 17th, which emphasizes the international community's support for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, while calling for a comprehensive, fair process to address all aspects of the conflict. In closing, Argentina, although cannot endorse the declaration based on the aforementioned discrepancies, remains fully committed to the spirit of cooperation that has defined the G20 since its inception. We're convinced that only through genuine dialogue, respect for consensus, and adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law can this forum continue to keep working constructively with all members and partners, with a shared aim on strengthening global stability, promoting sustained growth, and advancing development in a manner that is inclusive, balanced, and respectful of our diversity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We note with deep respect the views expressed by Argentina. We will recall that in our last G20 Summit in Brazil, Argentina was given the opportunity, following the various discussions that led to the consensus and agreement on the declaration, it was given the opportunity to voice its misgivings about certain parts of the declaration as it was adopted. And similarly, we have given Argentina the same opportunity, that they should, in their presentation, be able to raise issues that they are concerned about. We should take courage in knowing that that does not, in the end, mean that the declaration is nullified or rejected. It is a declaration that has been adopted by all of us here present. And so we want to thank Argentina for expressing the views that they have expressed, and many of the views are really views that are common or commonly held by many in terms of the adherence to rule of law and supporting the resolutions of the United Nations. So we thank you, Minister, for putting Argentina's position forward, and we will, with great respect, move ahead with a declared, with an accepted declaration as the G20. Thank you very much. We then move on and ask His Excellency Mr. Edgar Amador Zamora, Minister of Finance and Public Credit of the United Mexican States. Please go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Distinguished leaders of the G20 and invited countries, heads of international organizations. On behalf of the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, I wish to extend our sincere congratulations to President Cyril Ramaphosa and to the South Africa team for an outstanding leadership of the G20 this year. and for convening the historic Leaders Summit, the first ever held in African soil. Mexico is a country deeply involved in the promotion of peace as a basis for justice, fair trade, social equity, gender equality, cooperation for development, and respect for human rights. Economic welfare and cooperation for development are shared responsibility among nations. In a world defined by interdependence, no country can isolate itself or prosper at the expense of others. Choosing cooperation is, in essence, choosing a common future grounded in justice. The expansion of trade can drive employment, raise incomes, and reduce poverty, all core dimensions of sustainable development. Moreover, international trade fosters the global adoption of green technologies, serving as a powerful mechanism to accelerate the transition toward low-carbon, resource-efficient economies. However, the expansion of global trade also brings complexities. While it has fueled global economic growth, its benefits remain unevenly distributed. It promotes the exchange of knowledge and culture, yet disparities persist in labor protection and social inclusion, particularly for women and underserved communities. Environmentally, trade can advance green standards and technologies, but it also contributes to emissions, overexploitation of resources, and biodiversity loss. The question, therefore, is how to ensure that global trade benefits are shared equitably and if directly contributes to sustainable development and shared prosperity. The multilateral trading system recognizes that when trade is fair, transparent, and properly regulated, it's a key driver of development and a tool for lifting millions out of poverty. Trade must serve people, generating well-paid jobs, fair wages, and opportunities that foster social inclusion. In the economic sphere, Mexico promotes a strategy of shared prosperity that places workers at the center of decision-making processes, recognizing that decent work is the foundation of a better quality of life. In this sustainability dimension, our priority is to prevent, reduce, and reverse environmental degradation while fostering a circular economy. Our national energy policy advances renewable sources and accelerates the transition toward cleaner production and consumption patterns, while ensuring equitable access to water as a fundamental human right. Through the Plan Mexico, we are empowering MSMEs by integrating them into national and global value chains, facilitating access to credit, digital tools, and capacity building program is essential for equitable growth and innovation. At the same time, we are investing in human capital, aligning education and training systems with the skills needed for the green and digital transitions. Environmental sustainability lies at the heart of Mexico's industrial and trade policy. We promote investment that meets standards on water reuse, clean energy, and solid waste management, with encouraging community-centered business practices. Environmental responsibility and resource efficiency are not obstacles to competitiveness. They are its foundation. Moreover, ensuring debt sustainability, particularly in less developed countries and vulnerable economies in Africa and Latin America, will strengthen those nations and create a more resilient and sustainable international financial system, where the benefits of trade and cooperation can reach all populations. Mexico has supported instruments for debt treatment such as the Common Framework and the G20 Ministerial Declaration of Debt Sustainability. We have also developed a sustainable debt management strategy by using debt instruments under favorable conditions, including local currency and fixed interest rate bonds. Through sound public budget management, Mexico has increased investment in social protection and education above 6% and 4% in real annual terms, respectively. Thus, we advocate for international debt frameworks that enables this development-oriented approach, preserving fiscal space for health, education, and sustainable infrastructure. The G20 must lead by example in implementing the Sevilla commitments, strengthening the common framework, and expanding it to include middle-income and climate-vulnerable countries is both a moral and economic necessity. The G20, the United Nations, and international financial institutions must act in coherence. Mexico calls for an advancement of its synergies between the Sevilla Action Platform, the Pact for the Future, and G20 financial track. Finally, Mexico believes that the strength of the G20 lies not only in its economic power, but in its collective moral responsibility. Let us lead with courage and conviction to make trade fair, debt sustainable, and development truly inclusive. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you indeed, Minister. I now have the privilege to call on the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, to take the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس سيريل رامافوزا، الحضور الكرام، يسعدني أن أشارك في قمة